what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. Monkey Butt coming through, man, on the production value. Got the intro music.
And
the logo.
Everybody's here. That's
all two of us are here.
Yeah, it's all two of us. Well, Monkey Butt's three. We're a power trio at this point.
We really are. We're basically Rush or King's X, if you think about it.
Oh, well.
Power trios. Or Triumph.
Okay. Robin Trower used to be a power trio.
Okay.
But say that 3 times really fast.
I believe you.
Anyway.
Well, we are back. It is, oh my gosh. I got to look at my notes. Hang on. It's episode
39?
I think you're right. Yes. It is episode 39. I am Metal Rob. With me, as always, is the great
Carcass John.
Yes.
You even brought your smart glasses with you today, and you almost forgot what episode it was.
I don't feel very metal in my glasses, but I also don't care, which is very metal.
Well, and hopefully they're listening to this in their car, and they can just listen.
And they don't have to see my stupid glasses.
No. Oh, well.
Hey, these are Ray-Bans, man. I sprung for some
well, I could have worn my Ray-Bans, too, but...
It's not too late, is it?
No, it is too late. I have my contacts in.
Well, man, I don't want to bring the room down before we get into the meat of the episode, but, man, we... not only are we going to talk about Motorhead and the fact that, you know, we just went over the 1-year anniversary of not 1-year anniversary. We just passed over the anniversary
of Lemmy's passing.
Of Lemmy's passing, and he's been gone 4 years, I think, now. But we also lost somebody near and dear to us in the DFW area. And if you've ever dug for records in Dallas-Fort Worth, if you've ever really dug for records, you've dug at Bill's Records and Tapes. And just a few days ago, we lost the great Bill Weisner. And that one, man, that was a kidney punch for me.
Yeah, and the thing is and they found him at the place that he loved the most. He was sitting on his stool there and by the cash register and eyes closed and looked very peaceful, I guess. And and he's gone. You know, personally, I like the older store better, but, you know, Bill always had something, and you really, really had to work to find something that you really needed.
I found most of the stuff that I ever bought from him in the old store, but my best memories were from the newer place down there next to Southside and Poor David's, because that's where I spent half the night one night just talking to the dude. And I told the story on Facebook earlier this week, but I took my kid down there to an EDM show. I didn't go. I dropped him off. And so my youngest and I popped over to Bill's, and I'm guessing we had eaten dinner and popped over there about 7:30, 8 o'clock. I don't know. Well, the next thing you know, I look up, and it's 1 in the morning.
Oh, boy.
And the concert hasn't let out quite yet. You know, we're a few minutes away from that, but it's 1 in the morning, and I'm embarrassed. I'm like, oh, my gosh, Bill, I'm so sorry. I got to get out of here. I need to let you close. What time did you close? And he said, oh, we close at 10, but we were enjoying talking.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic.
Well, it really wasn't that little area down there, which is really kind of a cool hidden gem in Dallas. And a lot of people nodding, saying, gosh, I really like this Southside Ballroom area. Well, it just wasn't the same without seeing the Big Bill's moniker on just down the block. It wasn't the same. I was there on Saturday for the big Evil Beats #2.
And the open sign was off.
Open sign was off, and didn't feel quite the same. And anyway, and as much as I... How do I be judicious about this? It wasn't my favorite record store because of some various sundry things, because you had to work so hard. And,
it was a swap meet.
And there weren't prices, and that was always a real scary variable. But man, when he passed away, it was hurtful. And of course, you never want to have somebody die. It's not a good thing. And but anyway, rest in power, Bill.
Yep.
He's
rest easy, brother.
He's spinning records with a lot of cool musicians right now.
Our birthdays are only a couple of days apart, or maybe they're just a day apart. I don't remember. His is the 15th or the 17th. Mine's the 16th of April, and we talked about that. We connected about that and talked about he was Bill from Wells and I was Rob from Bell's, and that's how we referred to each other that night. Was, hey, Bill from Wells. Hey, what's up, Rob from Bells? It was just, it was cool. It was a good night.
Man. Well, it was an interesting, it was a weird juxtaposition there because the one thing that I did find there that was like my holy grail, I found a sealed Violence Eternal Nightmare there, and and it wasn't even in the V's, it was in the M's. I specifically remember, and the only reason I remember, I even looked at it was because it was in a box of Madonna records that were all the same color except for this one record. I think somebody found it and hid it and said, I'll come back and get it some other time.
It's in the Madonna records.
It's in the Madonna records.
Go get it.
And I pulled it out and brought it up there, and he said, in his old little way, with the cigarette burning
that
in his
baritone
and
voice.
That baritone voice, I think that one's about $40. And I said, I'm glad to pay it. And I bought it, and I just saw Violence again for the first time since 2003 there at the Southside Ballroom Saturday night, along with Razor and Power Trip and Carcass and a bunch of weird, eclectic electronic bands.
Hey, Fast Eddie's watching.
Hey, Fast Eddie. Hey, I'm going to mention him. I threw out a question to some of my buddies that, like, what did Motorhead, as we get into Motorhead, what did Motorhead do for you? But and influence you, and et cetera, et cetera. And so he sent back a nice little blurb. But rest in power, Bill. It's like I said, that block won't look the same with that light on. And but life is more, mortality is tough, man.
I sincerely regret not going down there it may have been a couple of years. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've been down there. I regret not going. And another thing that I regret that I missed, just like not going back to Bill's and seeing him one more time, I never saw Rush because they were on the Clockwork Angels tour, and my buddy and I at work said, man, we should go. And the tickets were a couple $100. We're like, nah, man, we'll catch him next time.
Well, no, you won't.
No, you won't.
Because that's another one of our sad little notes, not to start on a downbeat, but the passing of the great Neil Peart, and anybody that's played the drums, especially in rock and roll and metal, if you don't identify with Neil Peart as one of the greatest, and I think silly people say that he is the greatest. I think he's one of the greatest. I think there are a lot of great drummers out there, but he, as we've talked about before...
I'm sorry. Wait, hang on. I'm sorry. Wait a minute.
Okay, here we go.
Hold on.
Richie Blackmore.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I think I heard you say silly people say that Neil is the greatest. Is that what you...
I think limiting yourself to just one person might be a little silly, but okay, never mind. Can you retract that? Can you edit that out before final cut? Oh, wait, we're live.
Yes.
Dang it.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to make fun of you because that's what we do.
Of course. And as soon as I said silly, I thought immediately of you, and I thought, oh, crap. He probably said that on his Facebook. Oh, he did say that on his Facebook page.
Yes.
But anyway, I think that as we move forward with the Neil Peart tribute, he is...
The Mount Rushmore of drummers will include Neil Peart.
100% agreed.
In probably the lofted up higher spot.
I think you're probably right.
I don't think there's any question about that.
And I even got whimsical on Sunday and came up with a list of 11 great Rush songs that really show his technical abilities and whatever. And if you want to see that, you can get on my personal page and see that. And just bask in how just absolutely brilliant he was, and innovative and on time, and used different. It wasn't your standard 5-piece kit either, as everyone well knows. But
and the writing of the lyrics.
Well, that's the other aspect.
I mean, just epic. It's like you're listening to Lord of the Rings. I mean, it's just epic. The way he's so verbose, and the way that he put thoughts to paper into music.
And that's the one thing that gets lost, the poet and the power.
Yep.
And the poet part gets kind of shoved under the rug because we don't realize that he wrote 80% of those lyrics, some of those really fantasy-oriented.
Right. He wasn't writing "There Once Was a Man from Nantucket."
No, he surely wasn't. But if he
but
did,
if he had,
he'd have made it sound very eloquent.
Yes.
I'm sure of that. But
brilliant guy, terrible loss, man. That one That one hit me, and I didn't realize that when we were going to be talking about Bill and we were going to be talking about Neil and we were going to be talking about Motorhead, and we just went over the anniversary of his death. I didn't mean to bring the room down with a show about all these great people that have passed on to the next plane, but
here's the deal about people. People are going to die. The list is longer than both of our arms put together. The thing that's the beautiful thing about Lemmy and Neil Peart and guys like that have gone on to the next astral plane is that they leave something for us to hear and something for us to listen to, and so we can kind of bask in their legacy. And I got into a discussion with somebody about that beforehand, and I think that's when you achieve some sort of an icon. I guess we could call it an icon status.
Right.
Moving forward, despite the fact that Neil's not here or Lemmy's not here or whomever, David Bowie or whomever you want.
Right.
The music is such that as soon as that first measure is played that who it is.
Right.
And and so as we get into Motorhead, I think that everybody knows what Motorhead sounds like, even if you don't really like them. In fact, the question that I threw out...
it's instantly identifiable, yes.
Right. And I think that sound, not unlike other bands we've talked about, like AC/DC and so forth, it was a very measured and iconic tone. We knew that was the Motor. And when you saw Motorhead, you knew what you were going to get. In fact, my friend Francis Osley, who's an amazing, amazing guitar player, has done a lot of studio stuff, put out a solo record or whatever. He said that he came into the Motorhead game late, but he said Lemmy's attitude and uncompromising devotion to true rock and roll was probably the biggest thing I took from them. And so I remember seeing Motorhead several times, and we thought we were at a metal show, but Lemmy was pretty sure that he was at a rock and roll show because he said, we are Motorhead and we play rock and roll.
Well, and like you and I were talking about this week, they truly were a rock and roll band. You had elements of metal, you had elements of punk, but it was 80-90% rock and roll because you turn off the distortion and you're listening to 50s and 60s rock and roll.
Exactly.
All day long. And you can just name songs and you're just like, oh my gosh, that would have been a radio hit if the Beach Boys had done it.
Right.
Or one of those, early rock and roll bands.
True. And the other thing that was mentioned by some of these cats, including Alex Dominguez, who was the original bassist for Devastation, went on to play for the Texas version of Annihilator.
Hello, Rodney Dunsmore.
And Rodney Dunsmore, he was all part of that. And he said that something about he got the first record he heard was the Bomber album. And I know we all came in on the Motorhead train at various places. Mine was Ace of Spades, but the Bomber album, he said his friend gave it to him, and he asked him, well, what does it sound like? And he said, it'll change your life. Just go listen to it. And he was right. He said his exact words were, it'll change your life. The rest is history. Not only did it change my life, but it changed my taste in music. He said, Motorhead, to me, was an attitude, not giving two bleeps what society thought about you. Grimy, greasy rock and roll type of music. I had never heard before that type of music, and no one did it better than Motorhead.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of sums it up. And everybody that I talked to consistently said that Motorhead wasn't just music, but it was like a life choice. It was like a life-changing. It was a lifestyle. And I think it's true, because if you're true rock and roll, well, guess who's sitting on the throne of rock and roll?
Right.
I think it's Lemmy. You can say Little Richard, you can say Bill Haley and the Comets, you can say the Beatles.
Again, true rock and rollers sitting on Mount Rushmore again. Put Little Richard up there. Cool. I'm totally okay with that. But Lemmy, if Lemmy's not the president, he's on the board of directors.
Of course he is. And did you know that Lemmy was a roadie for Jimi Hendrix?
I've heard that.
And it's true. In fact, you want to find a really great book about start with this White Line Fever. It's the autobiography of Lemmy Kilmister, and what a great book. It's got some hair-raising stories, but it gives you just a brief taste of what life on the road was, and we can get into that about you would think that he's an icon, he's a superstar, he's world-renowned. I remember in Vaughan in 2006 when I went there, the number one shirt that people were wearing was
Motorhead.
A Motorhead shirt, by far.
Right.
And so he influenced a lot of people. That's a lot of metalheads wearing a Motorhead shirt.
Well, there's so many things to say about the guy. We could talk all day, but I rewatched the Lemmy documentary over the past week, and I knew the show was coming up, and I wanted to kind of refresh myself on that documentary because I would say of rock and roll documentaries, music documentaries, it doesn't matter if I like the music. I like a good music documentary, whether I care about the band or the artist or not. But having said that, with no bias at all toward, being a metalhead, which obviously we are, that Lemmy documentary is one of my top 5 music documentaries of all time. It might be my favorite, but it's definitely in my top 5. I just love it. Everything about it is fantastic. And the things that blew me away the most, because I knew most of the history and I knew most of the music and I knew about all the records and stuff. And I like that they didn't just do a history of the discography and all that. But a couple of things stood out to me. He's been in that apartment forever. He was in that apartment forever that he was paying a few $100 a month for so that he could walk to the Rainbow and to that studio
and play his little game,
play his video
that
game.
They still have. And in fact, the last time I went to the Rainbow, there he was, and he was very cordial, and he took pictures with everybody, and he shook everybody's hand, and but he was there to play his little poker game, his Ace of Spades game, which is an iconic song,
right?
And so Lemmy was a real person. He was just one of us,
right?
And his musical influences were unnumbered. I mean, he really took rock and roll, and as Alex said, made it greasy and grimy and turned it into a metal sounding rock version.
Well, the other thing that struck me about the video, and it's such a good documentary, if you haven't seen the Lemmy documentary, it's on Netflix, I think. You need to check that out if you don't just go out and pick up a copy of the DVD or the Blu-ray. It's amazing. But the other thing that really struck me was when he's outside the Rainbow and he's talking to Billy Bob Thornton, and they're just, shooting the bull about music and whatever. Excuse me, I'm struggling.
You're starting to sound like Bill.
I know. I haven't smoked a cigarette in my life. So, the other thing that struck me besides him living in that apartment for all that time was the fact that he's sitting out there talking to Billy Bob Thornton, and they're going on about, Billy Bob talks about, I made this big money deal on this movie or signed this thing and made all this money and whatever. And now remember, the documentary was in 2010.
Right.
Lemmy's been doing this for 30 plus years at that point.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to include his time in Hawkwind.
Right. 40 years.
So 40 years.
So he's been doing this for 30, 40 years. And he tells Billy Bob Thornton, I just did this thing. It was like for $100,000. And yeah, some of the money is starting to come in. And I'm just going, how does that happen? Because by 2010,
yep.
How many albums? God, how many albums were they in?
They put out darn near 40 records, or 30, at least 30 records, not including bootlegs. If you include that, we'd have to get with our friend Dennis, and he'd tell us how many millions of Motorhead records there are.
In 2010, when Lemmy said, I'm finally starting to get some money or see some money or the money, whatever he said, they were 3 albums away from being done.
Mm-hmm.
Done.
Yeah.
So from 77 to 2010, Lemmy's putting out records, and you're telling me the money's just now starting to come in.
Well, we've talked about this just in brief with bands like Grand Funk and Ted Nugent. You know, back in the day, the management just took advantage of them and kept them on the road and kept all their money.
Yeah.
And they, you know, when Grand Funk has sold 70 million records and has to pawn their equipment to get home,
that's
that's
a crime.
People ask why.
Shame on those guys for
people ask
doing
why Motorhead was on so many different record labels. Is because everyone wanted a piece of the action. They knew they could sell it.
Right.
And in fact, you know, just in fact, I think he was making as much money off the War Pig merch as anything, because this is Motorhead.
Right.
There you go. There it is.
Yeah, that's your Eddie.
That's your Eddie. That's your Vic Rattlehead. That's your whatever it is. And heck, I even got that tattooed on the back of my left calf, because that is Motorhead. You don't need any more explanation other than that.
Right.
And but still, to your point, you know, why isn't this guy rolling in dough? I mean, he may not have even been worth $1 million when he passed away.
Crime against humanity.
And still living in that same apartment, but he liked it that way.
Right.
He was a simple guy.
I like stuff.
He likes stuff. He likes booze and women and great boots.
And the Militaria collection is just amazing.
Yeah. And we should probably steer clear of some of that, because I know that you know he had a lot of the World War II stuff.
Well, he made a good point about that. Somebody brought up in the documentary.
Yeah.
How do you feel when people see you dressed up in this German officer's outfit and they say you're a Nazi? He was like, I'm the furthest thing from the Nazi.
Yeah, you don't know me.
If the Yugoslavian army had the coolest uniforms, I'd be wearing that.
Right.
and you know what? That's right.
That's right.
That's absolutely right.
And it's just stuff, and I realized
it doesn't make him a Nazi. It doesn't make him a white supremacist. How stupid.
So does that make us a Nazi if we buy his stuff? No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
That's ridiculous.
So I don't remember what my thanks, brother. I don't remember what my introduction to Motorhead was. So since you're a senior citizen on staff here, do you agree, Monkey? But he's obviously the senior citizen of the group. What are you, 60 now?
60 now.
Yeah. How old are you, Mark? 53.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still the young man of the group at 49. So let's hear it. What's your introduction?
This is it right here. Someone put this on the turntable and said, what kind of music is this? Is that punk? Because they got the leather and the whatever, and they got cowboy hats, and I'm like, huh. And sure enough, it just like my buddy Alex, when they played this, it was life-changing.
Who was the quote? There was a quote on the documentary. I can't remember who said it, but maybe it was Scott Ian. He took a look at this, and he says, who are these three Mexicans, and how can they play so fast?
Yeah.
I think that was Scott Ian.
I think it was Scott Ian. Sounds like something he would say.
But they look like banditos on the front of there.
A little bit.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But you know, can we agree that Ace of Spades is probably their iconic We Are the Road Crew, Overkill, Iron Fist, that's another one. I mean, but
Love Me Like a Reptile. I mean, everybody knows that song.
Everybody knows that song. I hope my parents don't read the words on that one. But
We Are the Road Crew. Yep. Jailbait.
Yeah, there's a great one.
Yeah,
that's a great one.
Hashtag me too.
Yeah.
Watch out.
Watch out.
Boy, the times were different then, weren't they?
Yeah, especially since hashtag used to mean pound, and that sort of adds a whole new meaning.
Chase is better than the catch. But
that's a great one too. That whole record is great, but that was my introduction. And I thought they were more punk at first, and then I heard it, and I thought, this is straight up metal. It's like metalized rock and roll. And silly me, I grew up going to church, and I remember when my mother played the organ or led the music, and I always traversed these songs in my head as we were singing them, thinking this would make a great hard rock or heavy metal song, and it kept me interested in the meaning and made me sing. And I often thought, I'm going to sing this like Ian Gillan here and really belt this verse out.
God, I'd give anything to hear that.
But anyway,
you look at the discography, and here it is coming up until And I'll stop and make a point about this one in a second. So here are the albums up to 1991's 1916 album. And show me the dud. Motorhead, Overkill, Bomber, Ace of Spades, Another Perfect Day, Orgasmatron, Rock and Roll.
No,
what? And they're making no money?
And there's no duds there yet.
There's no duds. And then you get to 1916, which this one was big on my radar because, and I'll tell you what's funny about this one. Do you know how I got this album the first time?
I have no idea.
I needed to fill space on my Columbia house.
Oh, boy. Did you ever pay the...
Oh, yeah, I paid.
The record's $7.99, but the handling fee is $32.99.
Yeah, I did it. So I got my 16 CDs for a penny or whatever it was, and I needed to fill it in. I needed one more, and I picked this, got it, listened to it, and I freaking loved it. The one to sing the blues, I'm So Bad, Baby, I Don't Care, No Voices in the Sky. What? Ramones? Oh, my gosh. And Lemmy's history buff nature in 1916 about World War I.
Right.
Oh, I thought you were reaching for it.
No, I'm not reaching for it. That's a great record. And so far you haven't named a dud.
No. So I'll go quickly over what I have. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have a ton of Motorhead records. I've got some Motorhead stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you get this thing,
and that's made of leather, by the way.
It is. If you get No Remorse in whatever format, I've got the CD too, but man, if anybody watching this that is a Motorhead noob and you don't know, go get No Remorse.
It's got all their hits.
It's got everything you need to get started. And to me, if you're just going to tap your toe into Motorhead, go get this.
But hold that up again. Notice the cover? Does it say Motorhead anywhere?
Nope, but you know what it is.
You darn sure do know it's Motorhead.
when you're flipping through the record bin, you know what this is.
Yep.
And this thing is just, I'm not even going to name all the songs. But here's the other thing that I want to get across to people, and then I promise I'll let you talk.
Sure.
Is the second half of their album career is fantastic. Bastards, great album. I've got This is my second favorite Motorhead album, is Motorizer. I got this either in a collection, or I don't remember where I picked it up. Run Around Man, Teach You How to Sing the Blues, When the Eagle Screams, Rock Out. Oh my gosh.
Overnight Sensation. That's well, not that. It's not on that record. I'm saying,
yeah.
As far as what you're.
It's just these guys. They've got the Overkill effect, or maybe Overkill has the Motorhead effect.
They were prolific.
It's just Motorhead record after Motorhead record after Motorhead record, and you know they're all good. But I really love Motorizer. I really love 1916 on the second half of their discography. All the other stuff, no brainer. You should own all of it. Everything we mentioned before, go get it. But if you want to start looking at some lesser known stuff, man, there's just such great, Overnight Sensation, like you said.
Man, that thing is a ripper.
Yeah, and came out in the height of grunge.
Yeah.
95.
And they didn't care.
Yeah. Motorhead, 1993, Bastards. 1995, Sacrifice. 1996, Overnight Sensation. Grunge is massive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Snakebite Love, is that on
We're
there?
Motorhead. We play rock and roll.
Yeah, they didn't care.
The other cool thing that I got, which came out in 2010, I can't believe I've had this that long. There's no way I've had this that long. I guess, time flies when you're having fun.
I'm going to roll you in the parking lot.
Okay.
That thing's signed by Lemmy.
So this album, The World Is Yours, came out in 2010. And remember, there are only two after this.
Right.
2 more studio records. So when it came out, they made 1,000 copies. 400 were on silver vinyl, which this is. And 100 of them were signed by the band. So you couldn't come in here with $1,000, $2,000, and get me to give you this.
But I could roll you in the parking lot.
You could roll. Oh, I'm faster than you, so you'd have to catch me.
Gonna make me run.
But this is a great album too, man. Born to Lose, I Know How to Die. Oh my gosh, rock and roll music. Brotherhood of Man, and Bye Bye Bitch Bye Bye.
Well, and I have a weird version. It's like a little book version of it, and I think this one's got a DVD in it. But but yeah, you gotta love that.
Silver vinyl, yay! It's beautiful. I love it. I'm so proud to have this.
Man, don't ever if that ends up in the cutout bin at your house, please call me first.
No way, dude.
I know it won't. But
the only thing I wish it had my name on it.
Yeah,
but it's just so cool. And when I did a record purge recently, there are certain records you flip past and you're like, okay, I've got it on disc or I've got it, whatever. But man, this thing hit me right in the feels, and I had forgotten about the signature. So
that's not going anywhere.
So anyway, there are my highlights for Motorhead.
Well, I've got a couple things too. I mean, I've got these little 7-inch picture discs, which are kind of cool and kind of rare.
May I?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
And
these rule.
Some of the Japanese pressings are really great because they have inserts and they've got the OBI and the quality of the vinyl is great. I've got these. This is kind of a fun one. It's a die cut. It's a split they did with Girls' School.
I've never seen
Motorhead.
that.
Yeah, that's really cool. Japanese only. And my friend Sawblade, who's a fantastic artist, and I always tell him I'm just a hack compared to him, and I am. But he's been doing these rock and roll or heavy metal characters, kind of like Eddie and whatever. And I said, man, I would love to have a Motorhead War Pig, and it almost made him cry because he loves Motorhead like we do. But anyway, here's his rendition of the Mighty War Pig, and this is probably one of my prized possessions.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because it's original art. It's the only one of its kind. And,
I have some originals of yours that I wouldn't take for, man. Sawblade.
Yep.
Have I met Sawblade? Did I meet him at Hell's Heroes?
I think you did. Big, burly guy, looks like Grizzly Adams. Big pile of hair, big beard.
Maybe.
Almost as big as your beard. Nice guy. And he's a phenomenal artist.
Man, that's cool.
And his career is slowly gaining momentum, but this is the kind of thing that he does.
Skulls in the eyes.
And yeah, you like that little touch. But that's probably one of my all-time keepers. Records.
I haven't seen this before at your place. This is really cool.
Well,
man.
I've actually hung it on the wall, and then this original pressing of Motorhead Ace of Spades is it's an original. It's the one that I bought years and years ago, and
that's nice.
And so
perfect.
You gotta love it. And so there are a few things kind of like you that I just as we go through the collections and purge, et cetera, there are certain things that just don't go away. I actually found this World Is Yours book at a half-price books store, and it was fairly inexpensive. But to me, it's not about the value that the world puts on it. It's more about what it means to you.
Exactly.
And I love that thing. It's got pictures and art and graphics and some other stuff in the pages that you don't get in the regular book. And so I've got various books. This Mick Wall book, Mick Wall knew Black Sabbath, and he probably knew Lemmy better than Lemmy knew himself. And this is the definitive biography of Lemmy. It's really cool. It's got pictures, and it's got a lot of the early history. And like I said, the White Line Fever is cool. This was something that I found that I thought it was just some weird knockoff, but this is a guy just went into the studio with Lemmy and as they were recording and saw the whole process, kind of like that vignette where Lemmy's taking his heart medication with a bottle of vodka, and anyway.
Oh, okay. So he covers. Oh, okay. He's covering them all. So this is one of those. Oh, I love these
Like he
books.
breaks down all the studio
who played
records.
on it and where they recorded it and what. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now Mick Wall did something similar like that with Black Sabbath, but this is equal to the task for Motorhead.
Kiss did this, and it's a 3-volume set. And if you've never checked that out, I've got them. You can borrow them.
Okay.
I mean, it's too much to read. They're huge volumes.
Right.
Yeah, this is cool. I didn't know about this.
But if you're interested in the process, and you always wonder where all this music comes from, and obviously it's in our hearts and our heads and our souls, and then somehow we make it come out in our fingers and arms and feet and whatever. And Lemmy, I think, was a master. I think he would listen to something and it would spark a song, and that would come out, and they. Yeah. There's a million bootleg recordings. There's a bunch of live stuff, and even the crappy live recordings are great because it's Motorhead playing Motorhead songs.
Right.
And
Motorhead is Lemmy, and Lemmy is Motorhead. That's it.
So, are you glad that they didn't keep going?
Oh,
as somebody else.
God.
Unlike some bands.
There are just some that you can't do. You're gonna do ZZ Top without one of those 2 guys, one of those 3 guys?
No.
You just, it can't be done. And some of them have really, I don't know, turned into a watered down version of themselves. But you do not replace that guy.
Well, and the thing about Lemmy is he brought groups together. I think he brought the punks.
Agreed.
He brought the metal maniacs and the rock and roll people together. My friend Mikey Bonaventura from a band called Attacks out in SoCal, not to be confused with the hair metal band that I'm sure you love from Ohio. He said that the first time he saw Motorhead was on the with Ozzy on the Blizzard of Oz tour with Randy Rhoads. They went to see Randy Rhoads. They didn't even know about Motorhead. This is 81. And he said they'd never heard Motorhead before, and Lemmy's voice was so gritty, and his stance was so unorthodox, and the mic above his head. The tunes I remember, just barely, I can only imagine, are The Road Crew and obviously Ace of Spades. And then he saw him a couple years later with his buddy Eric Turner from Warrant at Billy Barry's roller rink in downtown Fullerton, California, and he said the show was so insane and packed. I said a packed roller rink with raging metalheads. It just destroyed the place. And that's why they stopped having shows after that. But once again, he mentions the attitude, personality. He said it personified rock and roll, a true influence on anybody within the industry and beyond.
That's a good quote. We've got some people chiming in. Sean Antley, who I was briefly in a band with.
Hey, Sean.
Hello, Sean. His favorite Lemmy quote: "Give them what they need, not what they want," for refusing to play Ace of Spades at every show. Love that attitude. Fraser Ian Dawson, our buddy from Houston, chimed in, says, "Hell yes. Of every Motorhead in my collection, girl music." I do not know what that means.
Mean girl school?
I don't know.
Oh, well, Fraser.
Yeah, we love you, buddy. What do you mean? Oh, and Richie says, "Hello, ladies." I love that guy.
Our friend Eddie from Forebode said that he loved the fact that Lemmy switched from whiskey to vodka in his later years for health reasons.
Agreed.
I think his influence, he was more of an, even though he played the bass like a guitar.
Yeah.
And it was a huge influence on not only bass players but guitarists.
Right.
And I just think that that's kind of a cool thing that he held down 2 spots with one, and he sang.
Yes.
So he was like the grimy rock and roll Geddy Lee almost.
Right. Well, I'm going to say I appreciate you guys tuning in. It is awesome. I'm being interactive here, trying to see. Yeah. Sean, I appreciate you stopping by, man. Richie, Fraser, Sean Antley.
Fast Eddie He's still listening. Yeah. He's probably on his way home from work here.
Fast Eddie was by the channel. So, man, that wraps it up for me. The guy just was iconic. We've said it over and over. There's just nobody like him. There never will be. It's just.
Well, when we say the guy, too, we mean the whole. We mean Motorhead is what we mean.
Right.
I mean, Lemmy was Lemmy, but Lemmy was Motorhead, too. And as has been mentioned by our famous quips and quotes. I mean, it's an attitude. It's an uncompromising desire to be rock and roll, and it's a lifestyle. So more power to you. And Motorhead is like you say, if we're doing the Mount Rushmore thing, they're right up there at the top.
Absolutely. My buddy Bruce Lambert's watching out in San Francisco, Southern California.
SoCal,
is what
baby.
I'm trying to say.
There you go.
I ran into some of his friends at the Metal Swap Meet back in October. Andrew Strickland gave us a nice like. Thank you. Jay White.
All right. Sound of White Noise.
That's right.
Gotta love it.
Eric Ramirez.
Guitarist for Interment. Brutal. Local DFW.
Eric is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Jamie Walters Dominguez popped in.
Well, Alex Dominguez was one of our quotes. I saw them at the Evil Beats thing.
There you go.
Always love seeing those two. They're a great couple.
Well, thank you all for stopping by. And if you would do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the share button, tell your people about us. Because, man, they are Motorhead and they play rock and roll. But we are Metal Rob and Carcass John.
And metal will prevail.
Until next time, we'll see you, kiddies. Monkey Butt.
Thanks, Monkey Butt.
Do your magic. We love you very much.
Can you make me look like Brad Pitt? No? Gosh.
We'll see you next time.